what ethical principles can we bring into play to assess threats? We have already noted that threats are not necessarily bad. Sometimes they can even be good. What principles can enable us to discern the difference? And in our article, we draw on the so-called criteria of the just war tradition to organize our thinking about the relevant ethical principles. Just cause is paramount. Threats are not the default position in any civilized discourse. There is a presumption against threats. Their use must always be justified. I cannot here rehearse all of the possible reasons that might warrant resort to threats. Suffice it to say that a wrong must have been done or is in the process of being renewed. The penalty threatened must be commensurate with that wrong. If it should be apparent that an individual or state has little or no inclination for the wrongful behavior that the threat aims to stop, we would say that that person or state has been unjustifiably threatened. And someone who views himself with no propensity for committing the wrong in question will invariably feel that his honor has been impugned when he has thus been threatened. And I think this would describe Iran's position and reaction as it relates to nuclear weapons. We should not underestimate the importance that honor plays in the mind of statesmen. They view themselves as the custodians of their country's honor. All right, so that's just cause. And I just want to wrap up with a few words about right intention. If threats are to be rightly issued, they must be done with the right intention. This implies, among other things, that the penalty promised in the event of non-compliance will be withheld if the stated demand is met. It is easy to construe a situation in which the party issuing a threat wants to implement the sanction regardless of what the other does and is looking for any pretext to demonstrate non-compliance so it can do what it wanted to do all along. This is a patent violation of the condition of right intention. Secondly, behind every threat in due form, there is an assurance that the promised penalty will be suspended if the stated condition is met. The assurance is integral to the threat. This assurance must be credible, clearly stated, with benchmarks laid out so the adversary will know what is expected of him. Moving the benchmarks, or as we say, the goalposts. So with each act of compliance, a new demand is proffered. This is inconsistent with right intention. To conclude, I think it is important to inoculate ourselves against the mistaken assumption that in relations between adversaries, only threats will do. Only threats will have an impact. Only threats will modify behavior. But in making this assumption, we forget that the adversary need not always be an adversary. We forget that there is a very real process by which an adversary becomes a friend, or at least someone with whom I can cooperate. There is a saying, at least I learned it in school, "Sticks and stones will break my bones, but words will never harm me." That is false. Words can harm. And when their effect is to cast aspersion on the honor of another person or even a nation, the wound will stick, even for years, and enmity will deepen. I think it was Kant who said, "Do not do in war what will prevent the resumption of amity after war's end." The same holds true for threats. So even when threats may sometimes be necessary, our use of them should be very sparing. And they should be framed in such a way that space is left open for future friendship.